reason.
Hey guys, thanks for checking out my channel. I wanted to cover the tentative agreement that was proposed by Renfro and cover something I've alluded to in my previous videos whenever I mentioned the contract that I never really went into too deeply. I never made a separate video on, but I want to do one today and kind of cover my thoughts on how I think the negotiations between the post office and the letter carriers may have done something that is illegal. Specifically, I'm talking about Tulino, since he is the head HR person who is in charge of the contract negotiations, and how I think they have basically bypassed the law and their obligations in trying to push this tentative agreement. Now, for those of you who don't know, the law that I'm referring to is called the Postal Reorganization Act. That was created in the 70s as a result of the first postal strike. This law was created as a way to help us keep up with the wage growth in the private sector and the market in general. This was also, as a side effect, a way to appease us, the workforce, since we obviously can't strike, and it would give us some type of leverage in negotiations, something to refer back to and use as precedent. But I think that's clearly been abused and circumvented by people like Tulino, and I wanted to just show you guys what the law says and let you guys decide for yourself if you think it applies.
As an employer, the Postal Service shall achieve and maintain compensation for its officers and employees comparable to the rates and types of compensation paid in the private sector of the economy of the United States. It shall place particular emphasis upon opportunities for career advancements of all officers and employees and the achievement of worthwhile and satisfying careers in the service of the United States.
Well, you know, it's clear from the 2 years that Tulino was negotiating with Renfro that he wasn't really taking this that seriously. You know, this 1.3% is basically what every union gets every year. So he was basically pretending all these economic conditions with the labor force, these unions protesting, getting 20-30% wage growth, basically didn't exist for him. The contract he proposed was essentially a slap in the face to not just the letter carriers, but every postal worker, since we rely on each other to do our negotiations, especially with the cost of living these days, and the precedent that other unions set. This was total disrespect to the workforce. You guys, the carriers, you go out in the elements, you expose yourself to all types of hazards, including robberies. And for this guy to come back and offer you what he did, you know, basically feeding you table scraps and pretending he's really offering something. But this guy, Tulino, just to put it into perspective, his salary during the aftermath of COVID, 2021 to 2023, his pay went up 42%. Now he wants to pretend that he's saving the post office money by cutting our pay, essentially, with these low offers, while there's no scrutiny of his pay or the other executives' pay or the top-heavy compensation of management in general in the post office that costs way more than any other employee, especially when you factor in bonus pay that they get at the executive level and even some postmasters. But yeah, this was something that even the Inspector General was finding out to be an issue. Was, you know, the pay is not enough to keep people, and the top-heavy structure of paying management over the workforce translated into mail delays, which even the Inspector General was finding in a lot of high-cost areas where the retention was high. There weren't even applicants for certain areas, and they couldn't even keep career people in some offices. This is something even Mike Karif was noticing, and he called it out about the contract yesterday in one of his videos.
But you're going to hear two things. And one of them is that the post office finances are really bad. And the problem with that argument is that who gives a shit? First of all, the post office finances are bad because they've made them bad, right? They've messed up the situation. They're way over bloated with supervisors. They waste money on so many things and so many positions. They're killing themselves in these grievance payouts. They're paying out all type of overtime and penalty overtime. And it's just a lot of waste. Their hiring process doesn't work. So they got to constantly spend money hiring new people and going through all of that. So the post office is doing this to themselves. And quite frankly, when our brothers and sisters went out on strike in 1970 and they changed the law, they wrote that law. And I went back and reviewed that thing the other day because I wanted to make sure. But I've heard this before. And I went back and read every single word in that thing. It don't say nothing about the post office finances. It says that pay will be a career employment, and the pay will be set comparable to the pay and benefits in the private sector. And that's it. So basically, if we deserve more money, you have to pay us more money and you have to cut something else out. That's the way the shit goes, right? Pay us and get rid of some of these supervisors or whatever you have to do. We're not going to put our fairness and what we deserve and what we've earned to the back burner so that the post office can hire more supervisors and waste more money.
And even in the 70s, before the postal strike, the first postal strike, carriers were making more money relative to inflation back then than what carriers are making right now.
So you essentially here have, when we fought so hard to get carriers a living wage, we are actually, adjusted for inflation, making less than what caused the Great Wildcat strike. Brother, we are the NLC, the National Association of Letter Carriers. We're not Benjamin Button. We're not aging backwards. It appears that way. But the fact of the matter is, that is what we have been placed in it. So when you put that in perspective, that adjusted for inflation, our letter carriers are making less now than what they were making back in 1970, the equivalency of that.
And the evidence just keeps piling up for a case to be made, and that case should have been made by Brian Renfro, but then they don't want to talk about their own responsibility in upholding the Postal Reorganization Act that obligates the post office to bargain in good faith and compete in the market and offer comparable wages. And I think in this case, Tulino infringed on the Postal Reorganization Act by not bargaining in good faith and, sidestepping his responsibility and the post office's responsibility in holding to that law. And I think it's a slam dunk case. If you compare the wins from other unions where they're 20 or 30% increase to what we got, the 3.9% cumulative wage increase for the term of the contract, and the Inspector General reports themselves, which show the mail delays that some areas like Colorado or other high-cost areas are experiencing is directly correlated to the staffing issues, the retention issues due to cost of living. And this is why you guys need arbitration. You guys need that leverage to make a case to somebody who can apply the law that's being clearly abused by people like Tulino. And especially since your president isn't willing to fight for you guys need to take the initiative and do the fighting on your own behalf. But the good news is a lot of this stuff is out in the open. You can read the Inspector General reports online. You can find the union wins from other private companies, and you have the law on your side which makes this a lot easier. And it's not just the NALC membership that benefits, but the whole post office benefits, because remember, every union depends on each other to negotiate their contract. So when you guys received your tentative agreement, my branch president sent out an email to everybody telling them what happened. Even our national president, Paul Hirogan, was saying he pretty much is relying on the NALC contract to get an idea of what we can negotiate. So we're all in this together, this contract fight. Even if we negotiate separately, we're basically still tied together in its effects. And with that, I'm going to end the video, and thanks for checking me out.